The divided inheritance. I don't understand why you're being so difficult about this, Alex. My brother Nathan's voice boomed through the speaker of my phone as I sat in my downtown Chicago apartment, looking out at the skyline I'd worked so hard to afford. The family vacation house needs a new roof before winter. It's just $14,000. You make that in what, a week? I took a deep breath, trying to keep my composure. At 35, I'd built a successful career as an options trader, working my way up from an entry-level position at a boutique trading firm to managing my own substantial portfolio. Nothing had been handed to me. I'd worked 80-hour weeks, studied market patterns until my eyes burned, and taken calculated risks that sometimes kept me awake at night. Nathan, I've already covered the property taxes for the past 4 years. That's over $32,000. I paid for Mom's knee surgery last year. I funded our trip to Hawaii. When does it end? Come on, we're family. We help each other out. The casual entitlement in his voice made my blood pressure rise. Dad's waiting to hear if you'll transfer the money. The contractor needs to start next week before the fall storms hit. I hung up without answering, a knot forming in my stomach. I loved my family, but lately, the financial expectations were becoming unbearable. Ever since I'd hit it big 3 years ago with a series of successful trades during a market correction, I'd become the family's unofficial banker. My brother Nathan, 2 years younger than me, had pursued a career as a filmmaker in Los Angeles. His artistic passion was admirable, but his projects rarely turned a profit. My parents had always supported his creative endeavors, emotionally and financially. Meanwhile, I'd put myself through Northwestern, working nights as a campus security guard and weekends at a coffee shop. My phone dinged with a text from my father. Nathan said you're hesitating about the roof. We're counting on you, son. No, please. No acknowledgement of everything I'd already done. Just expectation. I opened my financial spreadsheet, the one I'd been maintaining for years to track family loans that were never repaid. The running total made me wince, $87,436 over the last 4 years. Money that could have gone toward my own future, investments, maybe even a down payment on a lakefront property of my own. The next morning, I drove to my parents' house in Evanston for our monthly family dinner. My mother greeted me with a warm hug, the scent of her perfume instantly transporting me back to childhood. "There's my successful boy," she said, patting my cheek. "Nathan's already here. He brought that new documentary he's working on to show us." I found my brother sprawled on the sofa, expensive camera equipment scattered across the coffee table. He raised his beer in greeting. "The money man arrives. Dad said you're still thinking about the roof situation." Before I could respond, my father emerged from his study, a folder tucked under his arm. He clapped me on the shoulder, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "Alex, good timing. I wanted to talk to you about this contractor estimate." "Dad, can we just enjoy dinner first? Mom said lasagna's almost ready." Of course. He set the folder on the side table, but I noticed him glancing at it throughout the meal. Dinner conversation revolved around Nathan's latest documentary, a project exploring gentrification in urban neighborhoods that had already consumed nearly $30,000 of funding, much of it from our parents. They listened raptly as he described filming schedules and interview subjects. "I'm actually meeting with some potential investors next week," Nathan mentioned casually, "but I might need a bridge loan to finish production. The timing might be tight." My father nodded. "We'll figure something out. Family supports family." I stabbed at my lasagna, wondering why that support always seemed to flow in just one direction. After dinner, as my mother cleared the dishes with Nathan's help, my father retrieved the folder and sat beside me on the couch. "About that roof," he began. "Dad, I've already put nearly $90,000 into family expenses over the past few years. I'm not sure I can keep doing this." He looked genuinely confused. "But you're doing so well. This trading business of yours. Nathan says you made over $500,000 last year." "That's not the point. It's about fairness. I worked for that money." I. "Your brother is pursuing his passion," my father interrupted. "That's a different kind of success. He needs our support until his career takes off." "And what about my passions? My goals?" I could hear the frustration bleeding into my voice. My father sighed, opening the folder to reveal the contractor's estimate. "The point is, the roof needs fixing. You have the means to help. That's what family does." As he spoke, a paper slipped from the folder, an official-looking document with a law firm's letterhead. I caught just a glimpse before my father hurriedly tucked it away, but the words, "Trust Agreement" and "Nathan Collins" jumped out at me. "What was that?" I asked, my pulse quickening. "Just some paperwork. Nothing important." He shuffled the papers back into the folder, but not before I noticed his hands trembling slightly. "Dad, was that a trust document? For Nathan?" The sudden silence in the room was deafening. From the kitchen doorway, I saw my mother freeze, dish towel in hand. Nathan appeared behind her, his expression shifting from confusion to something that looked oddly like guilt. "You weren't supposed to see that," my father finally said, his voice low. I reached for the folder before he could stop me, pulling out the document that had caught my eye. As I scanned the pages, the world seemed to tilt on its axis. It was indeed a trust agreement, established 3 years ago, right around the time I'd had my first major trading success. My father had created a trust fund for Nathan, currently valued at $275,000, with provisions for continued contributions. The same father who had told me there wasn't enough money to help with my college tuition. The same father who now expected me to pay for a new roof while he secretly funneled money into a trust fund for my brother. "When were you going to tell me about this?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady despite the earthquake happening inside me. My father took the document from my hands. "It's complicated, Alex. Your brother's career path is less conventional. He needs financial security that you don't. So I get punished for being successful? For making responsible choices?" "Nobody's punishing you," my mother interjected, stepping into the living room. "We're just trying to balance things out. You've always been so capable, so independent." The twisted logic took my breath away. I was being punished for my success while Nathan was rewarded for his dependency. All those times I asked for help, I said slowly, memories flooding back. When I was working 2 jobs during college. When my car broke down and I couldn't afford repairs. When I needed a security deposit for my first apartment. You said you couldn't help, but the money was there. It was just earmarked for Nathan. Nathan at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. "I didn't know, Alex. I swear." "But you accepted it," I replied. "You accepted every check, every loan, every bailout." My father closed the folder with finality. "What's done is done. Now, about this roof." I stood up, a strange calm settling over me. "I'm not paying for the roof, Dad. Or the property taxes. Or Nathan's bridge loan. I'm done." "You can't just abandon your family responsibilities," my father sputtered, his face reddening. "Watch me." I walked out without another word, the trust document burned into my memory. Back in my apartment, I ignored the barrage of calls and texts flooding my phone. Instead, I pulled up my family expenses spreadsheet again, this time adding a new column, Trust Fund Equivalent. If my parents could set aside $275,000 for Nathan's future, they could handle their own expenses. The next morning, I called Lisa Chin, the financial advisor who had helped me structure my investments after my first big market win. "This is quite a list," Lisa said, reviewing my spreadsheet of family contributions. Her eyes widened at the total. "And you've never asked for repayment?" "They're family," I said simply. I wanted to help. Lisa removed her glasses and fixed me with a serious look. "Alex, your generosity is admirable, but this is unsustainable. You're hindering your own financial future while enabling dependence. This isn't healthy for any of you." "I know that now," I said quietly. "I just discovered they've created a substantial trust fund for my brother while letting me shoulder all these expenses." Lisa's expression darkened. "That changes things." For the next 2 hours, we developed a plan. I would need documentation, notarized statements of all my contributions, formal receipts, a complete accounting of everything I'd given. Lisa recommended her colleague, a forensic accountant named Marcus Johnson, who specialized in financial disputes. "Are you sure you want to go down this road?" Lisa asked as our meeting concluded. Family conflicts over money can get ugly fast. I thought about the trust fund document, about years of being told there wasn't enough to help me while Nathan received everything, about the roof repair estimate my father had pushed across the table with the casual expectation that I would handle it. "I'm sure," I said, my voice stronger than it had been in days. "It's time they understood exactly what I've been contributing all these years, and what happens when that contribution stops." 1 week after discovering the trust fund, I sat in Marcus Johnson's office, surrounded by stacks of papers. The forensic accountant had been methodically organizing my financial contributions to my family over the past 4 years. "Your documentation is impressively thorough," Marcus noted, sorting through bank statements and receipts. "Most people don't keep records this detailed." My trading background had instilled good record-keeping habits. Every transaction, every transfer, every expense, all meticulously tracked and categorized. "So what's the total damage?" I asked, steeling myself for the answer. Marcus slid a document across his desk. The final tally was even worse than my initial calculations: $87,436 in direct contributions, plus $11,289 in lost investment opportunity. The additional $11,289 comes from interest you've lost by diverting these funds from your own investments, he explained. "Based on your portfolio's performance over this period, that's a conservative estimate." I nodded, feeling a strange mix of vindication and grief. The numbers made the betrayal concrete, undeniable. "What now?" I asked. "That depends on what you want," Marcus replied. "If you're seeking legal restitution, we could build a case, though family financial matters can be complicated without written agreements. If you're simply documenting this for your own closure or as leverage in family discussions, we can prepare a comprehensive financial statement." "The second option," I said. "For now." As Marcus prepared the documentation, my phone buzzed with text messages. "Dad, haven't received the roof payment yet. Contractor needs to schedule. Nathan, Dad says you're being difficult about money. After all they've done for you? Really, Alex?" I silenced my phone without responding. Let them wonder. 3 days later, I received a notarized financial statement from Marcus's office. The document detailed every cent I'd contributed to my family over the past 4 years, categorized by recipient, purpose, and date. It included a calculation of lost investment opportunity and a statement from Lisa Chin verifying the legitimacy of the analysis. That same evening, I received a call from my mother. "Alex, your father is concerned about the roof payment," she began, her voice carefully modulated to hide any tension. The contractor needs to schedule the work this week. I know when the work is scheduled, Mom. Well, will you be handling it? You've always been so reliable about these things. The casual assumption in her voice ignited something in me. 4 years of payments without a single thank you. 4 years of giving while they secretly built Nathan's nest egg. Not this time, I said quietly. A long pause. What do you mean? I'm not paying for the roof. Or any other family expenses. But we're counting on you. The money is already allocated elsewhere. To Nathan's trust fund, you mean? The words hung in the air between us. Another long silence. Your father told me you saw that. Alex, you have to understand. I understand perfectly, Mom. I understand that I've contributed nearly $90,000 to this family over the past 4 years while you and Dad have been telling me there wasn't enough money to help with my education or housing. I understand that I've been financing your lifestyle while you've been securing Nathan's future. That's not fair, she protested weakly. No, it's not, I agreed. And I'm done with it. I ended the call and turned my phone off completely, knowing the real storm was yet to come. My father wouldn't take this lying down. He'd always seen my financial support as an obligation, not generosity. The next morning, I opened my laptop and made 3 significant changes. First, I canceled the automatic payments I'd set up for my parents' property taxes. Second, I removed myself as an authorized payer on all family accounts. Third, I transferred $98,725, the total of my contributions plus lost interest, from my brokerage account to a new separate investment fund labeled MY Future. For the first time in years, I felt unburdened, the weight of constant family financial expectations lifted from my shoulders. The fallout was swift and explosive. By noon, my phone was bombarded with messages. I finally turned it back on during my lunch break, watching notifications flood my screen with a strange detachment. Nathan called 7 times before sending a series of increasingly frantic texts. What the hell, Alex? Dad says you're refusing to pay for the roof. We need that money. The vacation house will be damaged if we don't fix the roof before winter. Is that what you want? Dad is furious. Fix this now. My father's messages were more direct. Call me immediately. This is unacceptable behavior. You can't just abandon your responsibilities to this family. The contractor is waiting for our deposit. Don't let your stubbornness damage family property. I ignored them all and focused on my trading day. The markets were volatile, requiring my full attention. Only after closing my positions did I listen to the single voicemail my mother had left. Alex, please, her voice trembled. Your father is beside himself. The contractor won't start without a deposit. Nathan can't help right now. He's between projects. We don't understand why you're doing this. Whatever's upset you, we can talk about it. Please call us back. No recognition of the trust fund issue. No acknowledgement of years of my financial support. Just pressure to resume the status quo. I was composing a measured response when my intercom buzzed. The building security guard's voice came through the speaker. Mr. Collins, your father is here demanding to see you. He's quite insistent. My stomach tightened. Tell him I'm not available. He's saying he won't leave until you come down. I sighed. Then call the police if he refuses to leave. Very well, sir. 20 minutes later, I received a text from my cousin Emma. Just saw Uncle Robert being escorted from your building by security. What's going on? Are you okay? I hadn't spoken to Emma in months. I texted back, I'm fine. Family financial disagreement. Her response surprised me. About time you stood up to them. The way they've treated you versus Nathan has been wrong for years. I stared at my phone. I'd always assumed no one else in the family noticed the disparity. The validation from Emma was unexpected and deeply affirming. My doorbell rang at 7 p.m. I checked the peephole to see Nathan standing there, arms crossed, foot tapping impatiently. I opened the door but blocked the entrance. "What do you want?" "What do I want?" he repeated incredulously. "I want you to explain why you're suddenly acting like a psycho. Dad's furious, Mom's crying, and the roof contractor is threatening to take another job if we don't send the deposit by tomorrow." "Correct," I said calmly. "But what's your problem?" "The problem is that I've contributed almost $90,000 to this family over the last 4 years while Dad has been secretly funding a trust for you." Nathan's expression flickered, first surprise, then guilt, then defensive anger. "That's different," he insisted. "The trust is for my future. I need that security. And I don't." "You've always been the smart one," he said, as if that explained everything. "You've got your fancy trading career. I'm still trying to find my path. At 33? While I pay your bills and fund family vacations." He flushed. "You've never complained before." "Because I didn't know I was being manipulated. I didn't know that while I was draining my accounts to help the family, Dad was funneling money into your trust fund." "It's not that much money," he mumbled. $275,000 is a significant amount." His eyes widened. "How do you know the exact?" "I saw the document." A beat of silence passed between us. Then, remarkably, Nathan tried a different tack, his expression softening as he reached for my arm. "Look, Alex, I understand you're upset, but we're family. We need your help. Dad says without the roof repair, they might lose insurance coverage on the vacation house." I stepped back, breaking his contact. "That's not my problem anymore." "You'd let them lose the vacation house where we spent our summers? How can you be so cold?" I looked at my brother, really looked at him, and saw the entitlement that had been cultivated his entire life. He genuinely couldn't comprehend why I would stop financially supporting the family. "They have options," I said. "They could use some of your trust fund." Nathan's face hardened. "That's not fair." I smiled sadly. "No, Nathan. Nothing about this has been fair." I closed the door gently but firmly in his face. 2 weeks passed. The roof repair deadline came and went. I maintained radio silence with my parents and Nathan, focusing instead on my work and my own financial planning. Lisa had helped me restructure my investment portfolio. Now that I wasn't hemorrhaging money to my family, the difference was substantial. I could significantly increase my retirement contributions and even consider buying a small vacation property of my own. My newfound peace was shattered when I received an email from Uncle James, my father's brother. "Alex, what's going on with Robert and the vacation house? He's asking me for a $15,000 loan to cover roof repairs and insurance requirements. Said something about you refusing to help the family anymore. This doesn't sound like you." I sat staring at the screen, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. So my father was approaching other family members for money rather than touching Nathan's sacred trust fund. I carefully composed a reply, attaching a PDF summary of my financial contributions to the family over the past 4 years, along with a brief explanation of the trust fund situation. Uncle James's response came within an hour. "Holy hell, Alex. I had no idea. No one did. Robert's been telling everyone how he's struggling to help both his sons equally. This changes things." The next day, my cousin Emma called. "Alex, there's something you should know," she said, her voice urgent. "There's a family meeting happening at your parents' house this weekend. Uncle Robert called it to discuss Alex's abandonment of the family. He's trying to rally everyone against you." My stomach tightened. "Thanks for telling me." "There's more," Emma continued. "I overheard my dad talking to your father. Apparently, They're planning to guilt you into not just resuming payments but covering all the contractor's fee increases too. They're framing it as you deliberately damaging the family legacy. The audacity was breathtaking. "Are you going to this meeting?" I asked. "Yes, and so are you," Emma said firmly. "You need to set the record straight. I'll back you up." I agreed, though anxiety etched in my stomach. Confronting my father with the extended family present would be challenging but perhaps necessary. When Saturday arrived, I dressed carefully in a professional Navy suit that always gave me confidence during tough negotiations. I drove to my parents' house with the complete financial documentation from Marcus, including the notarized statements and calculations of lost investment opportunity. The living room fell silent when I walked in. My father stood by the fireplace, clearly in mid-speech. Aunts, uncles, and cousins sat around the room, their expressions a mix of confusion and concern. Nathan sat beside our mother on the sofa, both looking uncomfortable. "Alex, my father recovered quickly. I'm glad you decided to join us. We were just discussing the family vacation home situation." "I'm sure you were," I replied evenly, setting my briefcase on the coffee table. "And I'm sure you provided everyone with all the relevant financial information." His eyes narrowed. "We're discussing your refusal to meet family obligations." "Interesting." I opened my briefcase. "Because I have 4 years of financial records showing over $87,000 in family obligations I've already met. Money that apparently wasn't available to help with my education or housing, but was somehow available for Nathan's trust fund." A ripple of murmurs spread through the room. My Aunt Susan, always direct, spoke up. "What trust fund?" I looked at my father, giving him the opportunity to answer. When he remained silent, I passed copies of the summary document to everyone in the room. "For the past 4 years, I've paid the property taxes on the vacation house, covered family expenses, funded vacations, and more, totaling nearly $90,000. During the same period, my parents established a $275,000 trust fund exclusively for my brother." The room erupted in overlapping voices. My father's face flushed deep red. "These are private family matters," he thundered. "Exactly," Uncle James interjected, standing up. "Family matters. And in this family, we should treat our children equally." I hadn't expected this level of support. As the room divided into heated discussions, my father's gaze locked with mine. In his eyes, I saw something I'd never witnessed before: fear. The fear of exposure, of his carefully constructed narrative crumbling. And behind that fear, something even more unexpected: respect. The family meeting ended with my father storming out and my mother tearfully following him. Nathan sat frozen on the couch, avoiding eye contact with everyone. The rest of the family lingered, processing the revelations. "I had no idea it was this bad," Aunt Susan said, studying the financial documentation. "Robert always portrayed you as the successful one who didn't need help." Uncle James shook his head. "This isn't right. The vacation house has been part of our extended family memories for years. If you've been paying those taxes all this time, you should have some ownership stake." I hadn't considered this angle. The vacation property was titled solely in my parents' names, despite my significant financial investment in it. "I don't want the house," I explained. "I just want them to recognize the unfairness of the situation." Emma placed a hand on my shoulder. "Recognition isn't enough, Alex. There should be consequences." 3 days after the family meeting, my phone lit up with a text from my father. No apology, no acknowledgement of wrongdoing, just 4 terse words: "The roof needs fixing." I stared at the message, incredulous at his audacity. After everything that had been revealed, he was still treating me like his personal ATM. That evening, I received an unexpected call from my mother. Alex, her voice was hesitant. Your father isn't handling this well. The vacation house means everything to him. More than treating his sons equally? I asked. Her silence was telling. Mom, I've contributed nearly $90,000 to this family. Dad created a $275,000 trust fund for Nathan without ever offering me similar support. The disparity is glaring. I know, she admitted quietly. I've always known it wasn't right, but your father makes the financial decisions. I understand, I finished for her. But this is where it stops. The next morning, I texted my father back with a single attachment, a photograph of the complete notarized financial record of my contributions over the past 4 years, with the total circled in red. No written message was necessary. The documentation spoke for itself. An hour after sending the photo, my phone rang. I expected my father's angry voice, but instead heard Nathan's. Alex, he sounded shaken. Dad just showed me all the documentation you sent. Is it really that much? Over $87,000? Yes, it is, I confirmed. Every penny documented and verified by a forensic accountant. There was a long pause. I had no idea, he said finally. Dad always told me you were helping a little here and there because you had extra money. He never said you were covering major expenses while he was building my trust fund. His voice cracked on the last words. For the first time, I heard genuine remorse from my brother. Alex, I don't know what to say. I feel terrible. It's not entirely your fault, I conceded. Dad created the situation. But I benefited from it, he said. And I never questioned it. I just assumed I deserved the help. Another long pause followed. Then Nathan surprised me. I'm going to fix this, he declared. It's not right. Before I could ask what he meant, he hung up. The next day, I received formal documentation from my father's attorney. The roof repair had been paid in full, along with a legally binding amendment to the ownership of the vacation house. I now owned a 25% stake in the property. Attached was a note from the lawyer explaining that Nathan had insisted on using funds from his trust to cover the roof repair and legal fees for the ownership transfer. My phone buzzed with a text from my father. This wasn't necessary. Family helps family. I didn't respond. His message revealed that he still didn't understand, or refused to acknowledge, the fundamental unfairness of his actions. Minutes later, another text arrived, this one from my mother. Your father is struggling with this, but I want you to know I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. I should have done the same years ago. That evening, Nathan called again. I've asked Dad to split the trust fund equally between us, he said. He refused at first, but Uncle James and Aunt Susan backed me up. He's meeting with his financial advisor tomorrow to make the arrangements. I felt a weight lifting, not because of the money itself, but because of what it represented. Acknowledgement, fairness, respect. Thank you, Nathan, I said sincerely. No, he replied. Thank you for finally making us face the truth. As I hung up the phone, I gazed out at the Chicago skyline, the city lights twinkling against the dark sky. For the first time in years, I felt truly free, not just from financial obligation, but from the burden of silent resentment I'd carried for so long. The inheritance would be divided, but more importantly, the truth had finally been acknowledged. In facing that truth, painful as it was, lay the possibility of building something new. A family relationship based on genuine equity and respect, not exploitation and entitlement. It was worth more than any trust fund.